1898. I'm just sweeping round the view of Toddington. We've just passed the church, there's the pump, and opposite we've got the pubs and shops. And we can just see the edge of what used to be the old forge. Behind us we have the library. Interviewing today, I keep going behind me, but I shall get them in a minute. This is the library, it used to be the bakehouse.
Compton. I was born at Rose Cottage at the corner of Princess Street, 1923, October 1923. And I well remember my father, when this village pump used to go when it needed repairing. He was the well-known plumber in the town who used to do the repairs on most of the pumps, and also go down the wells in Toddington and repair the pumps at the bottom of the wells that supplied the water to the pumps at the top.
Go.
So yes, the plaque on the front was, as it's stated, W.D.C. Cooper was the Lord of the Manor at that time.
And he presented it to the town, we think about
1856.
Yes.
Yes.
And it was used by the whole village, wasn't it?
Yes. Oh yes. Yes.
Because people didn't have their own.
No. Oh no. There was no water supply in Toddington until the beginning of the war. Not Maine's water.
And I understand that it was even after the war that it was put in, because
yes,
after the war they brought the pipes, I believe, and then they didn't actually put them in because the war had started. Is that right? I think that's what Beryl had told us at one time.
Yes, probably.
So people used.
Remembers it better than I do.
A lot of people
I
had
know
their own
the
wells,
main water
said.
came to Toddington because my father built a pair of houses, one of which I live in Leighton Road in 1938, and there was no main water in Toddington then, and we put big rainwater tanks on the back of the houses to supply the water to the sinks, just for washing up water and that sort of thing, or washing water, for washing and that sort of thing. At that time, there were 9 cottages next to the 2 houses that my father built in 38. Behind these 9 cottages was a big pump. It supplied all the cottages, and we put a gate between these 2 new houses to the cottages to allow the new tenants to go and get their drinking water from the pump, you see. And then it wasn't long after that the mains came.
Thanks.
The earliest recollections of the pump that I know was when we were children. We never used to use it for water. We used to use it as a toy. We used to play on it and swing on it, and there used to be railings around the pump. Don't know what the railings were for, but we used to go head over heels on the railings and have a great time.
Whatever was that, it made us all jump.
I remember
It's a pity the van's just gone. The noise that we just heard on the video was the back doors of a van. Anyway, back to the railings. This is the famous
railings that we used to play on, and the concrete edges we used to use as slides because they used to freeze over and ice up. So really, to me, in my recollections, it was a play area, really, rather than for water. But my uncle John Compton says he was the first family in Toddington to have running water. Though it was to a cesspit, they used to have tap water to their house, which is in High Street, which is number 20 High Street. Mr. and Mrs. Williamson lives there now. But when he used to live there was running water, and that was about 19 70s or something, I suppose.
That's great, thanks very much.
Cottage, the house that I spoke about earlier where I was born, had a flush toilet off of the kitchen, but it was only flush by pails of water that we poured down ourselves.
Do you remember the what were called the lavender carts coming
Oh
round?
yes, the night cart they were called. Yes, to empty all the earth closets and the pail. Some were pails and some were earth closets. But of course, the earth ones didn't get emptied. The pail ones were emptied every week, but the earth ones only once every so often. And very often, the people who owned them had to empty them themselves. They didn't have anybody come along to do it for them.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Before we leave this area, the house I'm filming now was formerly the town hall, and there's quite a few old buildings that used to be there behind it. Perhaps at the side. Perhaps Gill will fill us in.
I understand that the town hall had a pair of cottages coming back towards the right as we look at it, in which people used to live, and then beyond that again was a sort of lean-to garage-looking effort which housed the fire engine at the time, and the engine was pulled by a horse. When there was a fire, someone had to come along to the town hall, ring the bell which used to be on top of the town hall roof. The volunteer firemen would rush along. One of them would have to go and catch the horse, and then they would get it attached to the engine, and eventually, it says how much later that would take, they would come back and off they'd go to the fire.
Well, I know I've been told about this because Bessie Newman, who died earlier this year, I'm sure the horses at some point belonged to her father, but alas, she's no longer around to ask. If I remember, I'll ask her brother.
Great.
Okay, we used to, when we were children, we used to go to dancing classes in a hall which was the whole top of the town hall was a big hall, and we used to go up there. From the side there was a wooden staircase which was actually in a wooden building, almost like being outside, wasn't it? Wasn't that brick there now? And that was Mr. Staverton used to take the dancing classes. He used to have an old gramophone which he used to play the records from.
Yes.
And being very naughty, we used to jump up and down, and the needle used to bounce across the gramophone, and which used to annoy him very much. But we had fun.
This is Toddington Church, and two of our audience were married there. Would you like to tell us?
I'm Jim Compton, married to Jean, who has been speaking earlier on this film. I well remember the church because we were married there on the 26th of July 1947 by the Reverend Hunt, who was the rector at that time.
And did you have a nice white wedding dress, or were you still in rations?
Yes. Oh no. Oh, well, it was still rationing, but I collected all the coupons from all my friends and relatives for my wedding dress and for the bridesmaid. I only had one bridesmaid, my sister, and we had our reception in the social club in the High Street.
In those days there wasn't much of choice of venue for an occasion of that sort.
No, wasn't there?
But we had a good time.
Yes, we
It was a
did.
very, very hot day.
Not like today.
Not like today at all, no. And we set off at 6:30 in the evening. A friend taking us up to Waterloo Station to go off to Bournemouth to spend our honeymoon.
Perhaps Jean would like to remind us about the ration book episode.
Oh yes. When we went on our honeymoon, of course, it was still rationing, and so it came up about should we change our ration. We couldn't change our ration books, until after you produced your marriage certificate. So Jim made the suggestion that I could borrow his mother's ration book, so that we went to the hotel as two Comptons, because then they wouldn't know we were on honeymoon. Anyway, on the Tuesday, we arrived on the Saturday, and on the Tuesday morning we went down to breakfast in this hotel, Pinehurst in Bournemouth. On the breakfast table was a large foolscap envelope which said, Mr. and Mrs. Compton on honeymoon. So the game was up.
Oh, thank you very much.
I was also married in the church. My parents were married in the church, and my grandparents were married in the church. We was all go back a long way.
Well, my mother and father
yeah,
were
my daughter was married in the church, in this church. So
yes,
yes,
oh, that's lovely. Yes.
It goes back, you know.
Yes.
Very
Well,
nice.
I go back as far as my mother and father were married in Toddington Church.
What sort of date would that be?
I can't do my sums this morning. I'm 75 and I don't know how long they were married before I was born.
Round about
couple of
1900.
years. Yes, I suppose so.
1932,
Yes.
I think mine were married, something
Well,
like
they did,
that.
yes.
What about your grandparents?
Like, no, my grandparents were.
You're going. That's a long one. I can't tell you when they were.
No, okay.
But the records are still in the church. I found them. We went back and
Did
found the
you?
records.
Oh, that was lovely.
Found all the, traced their family back for a long while.
Yeah.
Really nice. That's all I can say about the church.
The cottage at the side of Conger House was Dr. Fawcett's surgery for many, many years. He was a very well-known GP. He used to ride a most beautiful horse all around the village, and he would do his the outside calls to the farms. He always rode his horse to the farms to do calls to his patients.
And the Fawcett family was Mrs.
yes.
Fawcett started the Red Cross?
Yes, she was. That's right. Oh, she was a great worker, wasn't she, for the council things and all that sort of thing, wasn't she? Very public figure, Mrs. Fawcett was. The son was quite reserved, wasn't he? He was a vicar.
Wasn't he?
Yes, and did he die in Norfolk a little while ago?
I really don't.
He went down to Norfolk. He was in Norfolk many years, at a parish in Norfolk for many years. And his sister, she lived in Toddington.
Yeah,
And
she was just
Dick Fawcett,
Yeah,
she was
she
called.
was, many years in the choir.
That's
church
right,
choir.
in the church choir. Yes. Did a lot in the guides, didn't
Yes,
she?
yes.
Lot in the guides.
What about residents of Conger House? Do you know anything about them?
Dr. Fawcett himself.
Are there now?
Oh, no.
Flats now, I believe. It's
Yes,
flats now. I
it is,
don't know
isn't it?
anybody that's there.
Was the had lovely old iron railings all along the front of it, and I think I'm right in saying they went when they collected all the iron fences in front of houses for the war effort. Everybody had to give up their lovely iron fencing and that sort of thing.
And the thatched cottage at the right-hand side?
That was Mrs. Candelant. They were haulage people, weren't they,
Yes,
June?
they
They ran quite a big haulage business. And most of the lorries were parked in the bottom of Conger Lane, weren't they, dear?
Opposite, wasn't it?
That's
They
right.
had a big garage off down there on the right.
That's right, dear. That's right. Yes.
And behind that Conger House is Conger Hill.
Yes.
Do you remember going up there
Yes, Pancake Day.
Yes.
Laying down at the top of or on the sides of the hill to listen to the old lady frighten the pancakes underneath the hill.
And I believe that tradition's now stopped, hasn't it?
Hasn't it? They don't go anymore, do they?
Well, I took my grandchildren
Oh,
down
did you,
there.
dear? Did you?
And there was my 2 grandchildren. I took my mother as well, so there's 3 generations of us up there listening for the pancakes.
Lovely.
And did you hear them?
4 generations,
yes.
because there was my mother, my daughter,
Oh, that was lovely
myself, and the
tune.
grandchildren.
Yes,
Yes, it was
that was
nice.
But the schools used to do an official trip.
Oh
Yes.
yes, the schools, yes, we did an official trip because that was when there was the national school in Harlington Road, and we used to come up from the national school through the Conga, didn't we?
Yes. So we could have the afternoon off after we'd
That's right.
listened to the
Yes.
witches frying
That's
their
right,
pancakes.
pancakes.
And you could hear,
Yes.
you could hear a murmur.
Yes,
They kept saying it was electricity and everything else, but
Well, I was told it was the vibrations of the church bells. So did you have to listen at a certain time?
Well, they always rang at 12
yeah,
o'clock,
we did
didn't
have.
they?
It was 12 o'clock.
12
we used to
o'clock.
have to listen.
Well,
So it probably was.
So it probably was, yeah.
Probably could have been.
I only know about this because there's a photograph appears in the local papers every year, and it's obviously a very old photograph,
Yes.
and that they do like to remind us of these traditions. But it's nice to know that you've taken your grandchildren. Thanks. This is the old forge. It's obviously changed a lot over the years, but I've got a couple here who remember watching the horseshoes being made. Come and tell me all about it.
Well, I remember quite well old Mr. Pett. It was a huge forge, and you used to have to pump it up and down with big bellows at the side. Sometimes it's quite difficult to get the heat just right for him to make the horseshoes, but I well remember them being made for the horses that used to be brought mostly by farmers in those days. Working horses used to be brought up for a set of shoes to be put on them.
And then his son, was it? Ivor was his son?
No, he was the grandson, the great-grandson.
Oh, really?
Wasn't he? Wait a minute.
Grandson.
Neville was the son of old Mr. Pett. Neville.
In my early days, it was always Neville Pett that owned the forge, and I remember it being turned from a forge of horses into a garage slowly, because he still did a lot of ironwork and making using the forge for other things other than making horseshoes. And then he turned it into a garage, which I always remember it as being a garage.
And that was kept.
This is the village pond, which is a lot smaller than it used to be. And in the very far end is a memorial garden, which was planted by the WI. There used to be some really horrid ducks here, one in particular which I'm sure we'll hear about in a few minutes. We're just going to walk down the far end because it's away from the traffic. The area once used to have cottages. Who lived there?
A family of Ellises, Mr. and Mrs. Ellis and the children, and they used to be kept all beautifully. They used to have their starched white pinafores on when they used to go to school. Very nice family.
And there used to be a pathway along from the left towards Luton Road, is there?
Yes, yes.
When I was young, in my early days, there was a building here. Whether it was remains of the cottages, I don't know. But the AFS fire service used to use it to keep the fire engine in.
That's right, Jill.
And my father used to be in the AFS fire service, and which was during the war. They used to use it during the war, and they used to get the water from the pond. And it was NFS to start, and then it changed to AFS.
AFS is the Auxiliary Fire Service.
Auxiliary Fire Service, and it was a National Fire Service, then they changed it to Auxiliary Fire Service, or the other way around. But they used to fetch him out to the shop a lot over the road there, and they used to fetch him out, and he used to have to go and he used to drive the fire engine, and they used to go and get it out. And used to go for all the fires.
Remember it quite well.
Here is one of today's ducks, but in the past there was well, there was a very well-known duck, and I'll let the others tell you about it.
Campbell, isn't it? Is it Khaki Campbell?
That's not, no.
Is it? No, no, what's the other one called?
That's an ordinary.
Did you say that Daisy Duck lived over the road?
Yeah, Daisy Duck was a big white duck which belonged to my father, and every day we used to have all these little khaki Campbells. There was about 8 of them, and Daisy, about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, used to collect all the ducks and trot them across the road for a swim in the pond. Much to the amusement of the children that was coming out of school. They used to come and give them bread and such like. Some of them used to throw stones, of course, always there is one, isn't there? And after they'd had a swim, she used to collect them all up and walk them all back. Every day she used to bring them down, toddle them across the main road to the pond for a swim.
There was also a story about that willow.
No, they're mallards, aren't they? Mallards.
But the willow used to be upright,
No, mallards.
and it came down in a storm and thought it would die. And clearly it's still thriving quite well. Also, the wall at the side, which we're focusing on at the moment, is, I believe, the third wall that's known about to have been there. The original wall was restored about 1900, I think we were told, and when that wall became unsafe about 10 years ago, they removed it and had to drain the pond. And
This pond is looking very calm at the moment, but it wasn't always this calm. All sorts of animals have been found in it. Tell us about the elephant.
Well, my sister remembered Gill Compton as it was, remembers being in the shop and looking over the road to the pond and seeing an elephant in the pond and running back to her mum. She was only about 3 or 4, and saying, "Mum, there's an elephant in the pond." And the mum said, "Don't be so silly, of course there's not an elephant in the pond." And went and had a look, and yes, there was an elephant in the pond. It was having a drink. They were on the way up to probably up to the recreation ground, which was up Luton Road, to a circus, and they'd stopped to water the animals as they walked past, and she was right, there was an elephant in the pond.
And the carters used to bring their horses in. Can you tell us why?
Yes, they used to bring the carts in so that the wheels went into the water to expand the wooden frames of the wheels round the iron rims of the wheels themselves. I don't remember carts going in to do that myself, but I do remember quite well the baker's horse and cart going down in the quicksand. They quickly unharnessed the horse from the cart, but the horse went down, well, more or less to the tops of its legs. But
And whereabouts were the
they
quicksand?
did manage to get it.
Whereabouts were the
On the
quicksand?
left-hand side of the...
Sort of where the bench is now.
Yeah.
I often
Little
sit
bit
on this
farther-
bench.
Farther towards the existing fence, actually. And there's,
Jack Robinson from Flitwick used regularly to walk to London, and he always called in here to let his horse have a drink and soak the wheels of his cart.
We always used to go skating on the ponds.
Oh
when
yes,
we were
yes
young.
we did, yeah.
It always used to freeze over in the winter. Though we were told we were not allowed to go on the pond, we always used to have a little slide round the edge, and you know, somebody always managed to fall in because the pond always used to break in the middle where it was deep. And but you know, we enjoyed ourselves.
This is the War Memorial. Can you read it out to us?
This memorial garden was constructed with the intent that it should be a fitting and lasting tribute to those parishioners who gave their lives in the service of this country in the wars of 1914 to 1918 and 1939 to 1945.
Thanks. And up the corner is the memorial garden planted by the WI. There's a little plaque on the wall, but I'll film it in a minute.
All trees overgrown, and when we were children we used to be able to walk through from here to the recreation ground, which is up Luton Road, and it was a regular point for us children to go up there and play.
And just behind this wall there are some old buildings, and the social club's been mentioned. Tell us a little bit more about that.
During the war...
Hang on, this is the social club, but you can see the breeze block, and Jill's just going to tell us what it used to be.
I understand that the downstairs part, which is where the breeze box is, used to be a fish and chip shop, which was an integral part of the social club, which previously had been the New Inn. The New Inn itself had had a brewery attached further down the High Street as part of it, and I believe that the big hall of the social club was part of the brewery.
When I was a child,
This is Zach Snacks.
Jack Snacks, we used to go along there and get a loaf of bread for 4D. You could have brown or white, and it was 4D for a loaf of bread.
And we're coming now to the opticians.
The opticians, that used to be the greengrocer's, used to be Greengrass's shop. He was hardware, and he used to sell fruit and vegetables and all the groceries. It was the general stores, really, wasn't he, Greengrass's?
Yeah, that was where the wash
yeah, but he went...
Not
but
Hunt Opticians, wasn't it?
Oh, no.
No.
This is the wash place and the beauty and the hairdressers. That was all Greengrass's.
Well, I remember when that was a private house, when that was Hawley.
Right, that's before
Hawley.
Greengrass's then.
Yes.
That's before Greengrass's
Yes, I
then.
remember that when Mrs. Hawley lived.
Yeah,
there.
I remember the princes used to live on the
Yes, the
bit,
princes
yeah.
lived there as well.
Yeah.
During the war, they
Yeah.
were evacuees, weren't they?
Yeah.
Came from London, the princes,
Yeah.
and they lived there before.
So when was it changed to the wash period
Well, Mr. and Mrs. Weatherly had it after Greengrass's
Yeah.
had it, and it was when they sold up. It was divided up and then to a hairdresser's. I don't know whether it was a hairdresser straight away. I think. So then it was the dry cleaners. No, later than that. It was about...
When did you live there?
I lived there and...
Were you born there,
I was born there.
Yeah,
I was born in the
okay.
middle room there. In Punch Opticians, and I
Got the top room.
the middle piece in that middle room, the middle window in the middle of the sandy colour brick. I was born in that room there, and I lived there until I got married in 1959 and moved up now to we moved to Wentworth Close and are still there. I was all born there.
I'm at the Chinese place now.
Oh, well, that
that-
belonged to us, didn't it? It belonged to Grandad Allen.
Well-
The bakery.
Yeah, that belonged to my father. That's his first.
Yes.
It's actually his second bicycle
right.
shop.
Yes,
His other bicycle shop was up there. Then
That's
he had it as a
right, yes.
bicycle shop.
Did
That was 1936
Did
he
he
had that.
Yes, Grandpa Allen, didn't he?
I really don't know.
Well, I think so, Jude. And then we owned Grandpa Allen owned the bakery after Mr. Randall died.
Yeah.
And when Billy Childs worked for Mr. Randall, the bakery, for many years, and he went in the forces. He was in the forces all during the war. And when he came out, he came and saw my dad, actually, because my grandfather had died by then. And he said, would you sell me the property, Mr. Allen? And I'd like to start up the bakery. after the war, and Grandpa said, yes, okay, all right, yes, not Grandpa, my dad, sold property to Mr. Child, and later on, I think he bought the cafe as well, the property next door, which he turned into Victory Cafe, he called it, didn't he?
Yeah, my father had it before that.
That's right, yes,
Because we've
that's
got
right,
that
dear.
picture with
Yeah.
the penny farthing over the top of the door.
Yes.
Now, is that where
That property.
got the Victory Bakery?
No, it was a Chinese. Picture with the penny farthing at the top is where the tin new, whatever it is, Chinese is now.
And this is the very wall the bike hung on.
That is it stood up. Just
Is
about
that
where that fire alarm is now, I should think.
Right, I've concentrated on that. Now, didn't he use that penny farthing in a race around Toddington?
He didn't. It was his bike, but Les Brazier, which is May Brazier's husband, used it in I don't know if it's in a race or in a show or a competition of some sort in Toddington, which he won, and they won in China a dinner service, which I believe May Brazier still got. Tiled attic, as we used to call it, of building. When we did took floorboards out, we found lots and lots of pins, because it was always used. The Hawleys used to have the property, and they used to make dresses and curtains and goodness knows what else, didn't they? Yeah, anything in the material line, and the girls used to work up there with their machines, and obviously you must have dropped pins through the floorboards. So when we took the floorboards up, we found all these pins under the floorboards.
I'm now focusing on the hardware shop. Did any of you own that?
Yes, my grandfather owned that, and then it came down to my father. That was my grandfather's family business home, known as G.H. Allen and Sons, plumbers and decorators and builders. At the back, there used to be a beautiful garden with all fruit trees on the back of it, and beyond that, all the big builder's yard with all the buildings all the way around, which consisted of a plumber's shop, a carpentry shop, a big store for timber, and
I don't think this poor driver knows that I'm filming him. How to reverse one-handed while eating your lunch. Quite appropriate that a beer lorry should be in our way. We're standing outside the old social club and the Angel. The Angel's a very, very popular venue in Toddington. We've just caught someone walking past, and everyone said I've got to film him, so here we are. What's your name?
Well, my name's Harold Fletcher. I used to be the local milkman, and I belong to quite a few committees in the village. And the social club was formed when the Home Guard was formed, just after the war. That's when it was united, the Home Guard, and my father was one of the founder members, Flitwick Library.
And before it was a social club, what can you tell us about that?
That was a brewery before that. Well, I can't tell you much about that because I wasn't about in those days.
Did you know about the fish shop? Was that there in your day?
yes,
yeah.
you remember the fish shop on the corner.
Yeah.
Can't remember the name.
Well, I can't remember the name of
I
it.
can see the name.
Can you tell us anything more about the Angel?
Well, they used to be the state, but they built those places on the side. They used to put the horses there because I remember Mr. Fred Harley used to bring it after the milk and tie that, and they used to have a game of dominoes when they finished the milk round about 1 o'clock. They used to stop there 1 till 2, and before he went back to Faggott, well, the horse used to know its way home. If they had a few drinks, the horse used to take them home, go down Horse Hill, and used to find its own way home after 2 o'clock.
Tell me the story you told me last night about not going to school one day.
Well, me and Alfie Dudley played through it one afternoon. That was from the National School when I was a teacher. Mrs. Ascot was there, Mrs. Higgs and Mrs. Sadler, And Mr. Whitman was the headmaster. We played through and went to the baker's, local bakery across the road, and got a brown loaf and played through it, and in the afternoon down the recreation, bottom of the recreation ground. And when we got back home, my dad and them didn't half lay the law down. They fetched his belt, he used to wear a belt, and he fetched it and put it across the back sides and said, don't you do that again.
Can you remember anything about the pond area as well? We've just been doing that.
Well, this used, before that was done, that was all open on the pond before they ground it down. And they reckon years ago, an horse and cart was lost in there. Well, I can't tell you, but that's the old rumours about the pond. And sometimes when they undone the bolts at the back, they used to flood down the back of the pond lane. And then it used to end when they bust out the pond, used to cause problems down the back years ago.
This is Wentworth House, sometimes known as the Red House, but I'll get the gang to tell you more about it.
Wentworth House, that we're standing in front of at the moment, used to be 3 properties. My great-grandfather lived in one. I don't know who lived in the other one, but at the other end, it was the Conservative Club for many, many years. Behind Wentworth House, there was a row of cottages. You went down the right-hand side of Wentworth House to these cottages. I think there was about 4 or 5, wasn't there? 4. Yes. A lady named Mrs. Washington lived in one.
Smith and another. And
Mr. Smith.
They used to live with his sister, didn't they?
That's right, yes. And he used one named Shed.
He was a local roadman.
That's right.
He used to have his wheelbarrow around the green.
Yeah.
Take him a week to sweep round the green.
What were you saying about how he walks?
Well, he's got a wooden leg, and he used to
Carry on, carry on. Yeah.
When we were children, very naughty now. We used to all walk behind him doing the same. There's another one in that.
I've forgotten all about that.
And during the war, the army took it over, didn't they?
Yes, the anti-tank corps came to Toddington during the war. We had the Captain Browning staying with us for a long, long time, and also Sergeant Fraser, and I've still got the silver sugar bowl that they sent me for my wedding presents after the war. I was going to bring that to show everybody with the brooch.
Of course, the house is called Wentworth House, and you were saying that you had a brooch.
Yes, it's called Wentworth House, and a very old story goes that there used to be a tunnel, but I don't think that's ever been authenticated anyway. But Monmouth used to go and visit Lady Maria Wentworth down at Toddington Manor, and I do have a brooch which it was a neck. The ladies used to wear velvet bands around their necks, and this brooch was one of those that used to be on a velvet band, and it's set in little gold frame with rubies around it, and it is supposed to be Lady Maria Wentworth.
Henrietta Wentworth.
Yes,
Henrietta.
That's right, Henrietta. Yes.
When was it called the Red House?
Well, it was the Red House when my great-grandfather lived in it.
It used to be these trees in front.
No.
Seaboard.
Yeah. It was lovely, wasn't it? Yeah. In the balcony.
Yes, it was nice.
I was going to say, you remember the window, do you?
Do
you want to say about the window?
When it was
Yeah, that's right. There used to be the door this way.
That's right, door there. Well, I've got the photograph of all that.
Yeah.
Of this,
That was the door
with
for when at the
Conservative stuff
side.
over the top.
No, the door was here.
At the front.
That was the window. there. Look, you can see
Yeah,
where
can you
it's
see
been
the
built
top of the
in.
window?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
There where it's been bricked in.
yeah. And this one used to belong to Mr. George Arthur.
Yes, who owned the newsagent.
Yeah, that's across the road.
They had this built. They owned Earl's Court, didn't they? Or they bought Earl's Court. And
These used to be all individual cottages just here. Used to belong to Mr. Seymour and his wife and Rosanna. Now it's all been converted into one. Used to be very nice cottages here. Used to be part of the community, Mr. Vic Seymour. He used to play all the games to Larry's, tennis and anything. He was all involved in a local builder as well. He was very active in the village and he wrote a book of Toddington.
Which I think we've probably got in the library.
There is a copy.
Yeah, that's right, because he was devoted to the village.
The shop was the end one, was it?
Yeah, that's right. I want to find some more, but
What, with the blue door?
They're all blue.
Oh yes, so they are.
used to be a workshop.
yeah, that's right.
What sort of a shop, you say?
Well, it used to be like a general shop, wasn't it? Yeah. And somebody said there was a butcher's icon.
There used to be a big poplar tree here as well.
There's also a door where that chimney is there.
Yeah.
Because I remember
That's right, yes.
going through the door there.
Yes, well that's where Mr. Harry Ayres used to live there, didn't
I had
he?
a friend, but I think she was about 3, lived in there. But we used to go through a door.
That's right, yes, you're right, June. You did, dear.
The cottage at the front is Ivor Pett's old cottage, isn't
That's
it?
right, you're
And
right.
I understand from his daughter that it's supposed to be the oldest cottage in the village, she was saying the other day. And round the other side you can see part of the oldest part of that cottage.
Oh, yes.
Now, which building, so I've got it
The
right?
one which has got the cream
on it.
facade.
Oh, right, I am filming that, good.
Thank you.
So if you go up to the other end, you can see the old part.
But we've just discovered that the door still exists.
We were talking about that. Part of it, at least, was here. It's on the map of 1581, Agar's map of 1581, and I found that the bottom part was the part of the original footings. This is all part of the, so far as we understand, of the original house which was there in 1581. Fascinating to find that those footings were there as well.
We're now inside the cottage and we're looking at the Inglenook fireplace. And Tom's just walked across the camera. And again we have an original beam going across the kitchen. The house has been extended quite a lot, and when we go outside again I'll film the old beams outside. There's a magnificent Philadelphia here, and the buildings now I'm filming were part of the old stables. The beams are all original, although the brickwork has been repointed. You can see the edge of the original building, the beam going diagonally. We think it's called a crook, but we'll have to check this. And there should be one on the other side, but that has been removed as the building was extended. And I'll just concentrate once more on the original footings.
Over on the right is the present Peking House Chinese food. It was the fish and chip shop 20 years ago when we came into the village. The next one along now belongs to a video and audio specialist, belonged to the Stapleton family. Mr. Stapleton ran a dance band, and he also ran the dances which were mentioned in the town hall. Then we have the present Bombay Tandoori restaurant. It used to be owned as a general stores by Miss or Mrs. Buckingham, who was the auntie of David Buckingham, now owns Griffin Farm, on which Conger Hill stands. Then we have the library, which is still in the shape of the old bakehouse, and the Oddfellows' Arms, whose windows, to a certain extent, have been replaced to look old, and in fact are quite different from the old windows that used to be there.
And the flags are out because it's football, the World Cup. The library itself has been quite well restored, and the windows in the roof were inserted. I think they look a little bit odd, but we have to provide light for the upstairs mezzanine floor, in which we have the Toddington Museum. It was given to the museum by the library for a peppercorn rent. And I do remember at the ceremony I handed over a packet of peppercorns to Mr. Walker. It's Peter.
Took my glasses off.
And Wendy. They threatened to heckle me. We're just going to film the Toddington tea towel.
This is the Toddington tea towel. It came as a result of a parish map idea which was, I think, through the whole country. People were asked to do anything which could be called a parish map, simply had to involve the parish. The village was asked to fill in a questionnaire telling what were the most special things they thought of as being Toddington. The local middle school children took the most
memorable
features and incorporated them into, I believe, a series of 6 games. This game won the competition, which was held by the Historical Society locally, and it's based on the game of Ludo, called, as you can probably see, Toddo. The rules are set out on the tea towel, and we have many of the buildings, features of Toddington here, which will now be discussed. And then try and think of which thing.
Well-known butcher's shop here, William Muckleston's, there for many years, and all the villagers used to use Mr. Muckleston quite a lot for their meats. The Conger Hill, well, as a child, at the national school, we used to have half a day off that day, and we used to all be shepherded through to the Conger Hill to hear the old witch frying her pancakes under the hill on Pancake Day. The library where we're in at the moment, that used to be a bakery, Mr. Clifford's, and the eldest daughter Anne and myself were great friends for many years. The Angel was a well-known pub run by the Randall family for many years, and Joan Randall was a very smart, Joan Randall was one of the daughters, very smart young person in those days, used to be behind the bar. The high street shops, well, the one opposite the pond here was my own grandfather's family home, where we ran the building business for nearly 100 years. And then there was Mr. Kempton in the cycle shop farther along. He was there for many years as well. Sound Peak's a well-known public house opposite the church.
And called the Sound Pigs because that's a representation of part of the, what do we call it, the thing around the top of the church.
The trees around the church.
That's right, yes, because there's Sound Pigs all around the church, isn't there? And not battlements.
It's quite interesting looking at this. Obviously some bits are upside down because it's supposed to be a game played by at least 4 people. You can actually see the ducks upside down at the moment.
Shall we turn it over?
They're just going to turn it over.
That's right. That was run by Mr. Hyde for many, many years. Bim's brother. Bim's father, wasn't it?
Yeah. The Bedford Arms was actually a farmhouse at one time, wasn't it? Which is next to the town band representation.
Right, yes.
And now is a pub. The old Ford garage we were talking about. This is what it used to look like when it had the petrol pumps outside.
Methodist Chapel hasn't changed an awful lot over the years. The front's changed a bit, but not. Social club, of course, it used to be the old brewery which we spoke about, was used after the war when the town hall couldn't be used for social occasions, and many weddings were held in social club after the war. In fact, our own wedding was, and I believe June's wedding was in there. As someone who was born in Toddington, I would like to feel that Toddington will always keep the spirit of the village, and that has always been friendly and welcoming, and that the future generations will preserve all the history of the village, which we have treasured so much during our lives.
Thank you. And I'd like to record my thanks to all the members of the group.